Chapter 4 Triflers, Cheats, and Spoil Sports, in which the Grasshopper wards off an attack by Skepticus on his definition by distinguishing between a game and the institution of a game. Since many goals exist only because they are goals in games, I continued, it does not seem possible in these cases to identify a prelusory goal, that is, a goal which, in your words, Grasshopper, can be achieved independently of the game in which it figures or may come to figure. How can checkmate, for example, be achieved aside from a game of chess? You cannot say, in an effort to dissociate checkmate from chess, that checkmate consists in objects of a certain physical description arranged in a certain pattern or range of patterns. For it is the rules which govern movement of the pieces that permit an arrangement of the pieces to count as a case of checkmate, and not merely the geometrical pattern such an arrangement has. And the object of the game, to immobilize an opponent's king, is also a rule-governed state of affairs, since a king in chess is nothing more than a marker which is placed on the squares in accordance with rules. You expressly recognized this point earlier when you described the prelusory goal of chess in the following words: to place your pieces on the board in such an arrangement that the king is, in terms of the rules of chess, immobilized. In chess, therefore, it seems impossible to identify a prelusory goal, that is, an achievable state of affairs which becomes the goal of a game only with the introduction of means-limiting rules. For the alleged prelusory goal of chess is already saturated with rules, and is therefore not a prelusory goal as defined. I will grant you that more primitive games, such as foot racing, do have this kind of goal, for crossing a line drawn upon the ground can be accomplished independently of the rules of foot racing. But chess, and a host of other games as well, do not appear to have such goals. In this respect, therefore, the definition is too narrow.
Your objection is a good one, Skepticus, replied the Grasshopper, and you have expressed it with commendable force. I believe that it arises, however, out of a confusion of two quite different ways in which rules figure in games. Although it is necessary to refer to the rules of chess in describing checkmate, and also necessary when playing chess to obey the rules in seeking to achieve that state of affairs, the involvement of chess rules in the two cases should not obscure the fact that the uses to which the rules are put are quite different. In one case, they are used to describe a state of affairs, in the other, to prescribe a procedure, and it is clear that one can avail oneself of their descriptive use without at the same time having to commit oneself to their prescriptive use. For one can bring about a state of affairs correctly describable as checkmate in complete disregard of the rules as procedural prescriptions. One simply sets out the pieces in such a way that black has white in checkmate. Such descriptive checkmate does not, of course, signal anyone's victory at chess, since it was not the result of anyone's playing chess. But for that very reason it confirms the contention at issue, namely, that there is a goal in chess which can be achieved independently of the game in which it occurs or may come to occur. Still, while it is true that descriptive checkmate can be achieved without playing a game of chess, it is nevertheless the case that the achievement of such checkmate is in some sense dependent upon chess. What is this sense of chess? There is, I suggest, an institution of chess which can be distinguished from any individual game of chess. Because of this institution, it is possible, for example, to take a knight out of a box of chessmen and describe its capabilities, even though the knight is not then functioning as a knight, that is, as a piece in a game of chess. And it is also possible, as has been noted, to set out the chess pieces in a checkmate arrangement without having to play a game of chess in order to achieve that state of affairs. Accordingly, although it is not possible to achieve the prelusory goal of chess, or at least to recognize that you have done so, aside from the institution of chess, it is possible to achieve it aside from a game of chess. In order to lend further support to this conclusion, let us consider three familiar types of behavior associated with the playing of games. the behavior of triflers, cheats, and spoil sports. For it will be seen that the identification of these types presupposes the distinction between a game and its institution, and the identification of a prelusory goal which that distinction permits. A trifler at chess is a quasi-player of the game who conforms to the rules of the game but whose moves, though all legal, are not directed to achieving checkmate. Such a trifler may have some other purpose in mind. He may, for example, simply be trying to get 6 of his pieces to the other side of the board before he is checkmated, in which case he could be said to be trifling with chess by playing another game at the expense of chess. Or he may be interested simply in seeing what patterns he can create, or he may just be moving his pieces at random. Now, although it is possible for someone to do all of these things without violating the rules of chess, I think it is fair to say that such a person is not playing chess, although it is clear that he is operating within the institution of chess, for all he is doing is making chess moves. But to acknowledge the distinction between the game of chess and its institution is also to acknowledge the existence in chess of a prelusory goal, for it is the trifler's refusal to seek that goal which alone entitles us to say that although he is engaged in something chess-like, playing chess is not what he is engaged in. Perhaps we can say of the trifler that he is not playing chess because of a deficiency of zeal in seeking to achieve the prelusory goal of chess. If so, then perhaps we can say of the cheat that he is not playing chess because of an excess of zeal in seeking to achieve the prelusory goal. For although, unlike the trifler, he certainly wants to achieve a condition which is, descriptively, a condition of checkmate, his desire to achieve that condition is so great that he violates the rules of chess in his efforts to do so. But he, too, is operating within the institution of chess, for he violates the rules in their prescriptive application only because of his expectation that they will be observed in their descriptive application. Thus, although he is not really playing the game, he has not abandoned the game's institution. On the contrary, his continuing to operate in terms of the institution is a necessary condition for his exploitation of the game and of his opponent. Liars, as Kant has pointed out, would soon go out of business if everyone were a liar. That is, if there were not a well-established institution of truth-telling. For if no one had more reason to believe than to disbelieve anything that anybody else ever said, then lying would not deceive and would so be pointless. In terms of their dependence upon institutions, cheaters at games are precisely like liars in everyday life. For suppose a cheat at chess has, without detection, feloniously achieved a pseudo-checkmate only to find that his opponent will not acknowledge that the checkmate arrangement of pieces counts as a victory. "Checkmate," says the cheat. "Nonsense," his opponent rejoins. "Checkmate is the condition when you have immobilized my king, but you have not immobilized my king. Behold, I am moving it about in the air." "This isn't a move in chess, you idiot," cries the enraged cheat. "What rubbish! A move is a move." "Don't be absurd. How could I possibly counter such a move? Why don't you try to grab me by the wrist? How can you be so stupid? Do you want to play chess or do you want to arm wrestle?" "Arm wrestle? Now that you mention it, chess bores me to death." "Damn you," sobs the cheat. "You're nothing but a spoil sport." "Bang in the gold," replies the spoil sport. In summary, it may be said that triflers recognize rules, but not goals. Cheats recognize goals, but not rules. Players recognize both rules and goals. And spoil sports recognize neither rules nor goals. And that while players acknowledge the claims of both the game and its institution, triflers and cheats acknowledge only institutional claims, and spoil sports acknowledge neither. The difference between chess and foot racing, therefore, is not that foot racing has an identifiable prelusory goal and chess does not. It is that foot racing does not, at least obviously, happen to require the kind of institution that is required by chess. In foot racing, the moves consist in kinds of running, pacing, sprinting, passing, etc., and these already exist aside from foot racing in a way that the moves of bishops and rooks do not exist aside from chess. And the prelusory goal in foot racing, crossing a line ahead of other runners, does not require reference to the institution of foot racing in order to be intelligible. But even this difference between foot racing and chess is less sharp than at first appears to be the case. For if no one had ever used his feet before the invention of foot racing, then foot racing would require the invention of running, and so pacing, sprinting, and passing would be as much instituted moves as are the moves in chess. But this condition would not preclude identification of a prelusory goal because the latter could be achieved, as in chess, by violating or ignoring the procedural rules which governed foot racing. And it is the latter fact which establishes the game independence of a prelusory goal, not the fact that such a goal can exist outside the institution which includes the game.
Well, Grasshopper, I said, I can think of no immediate rejoinder to your reply. The distinction between a game and its institution seems to be undeniable, and therefore the universality of the prelusory goal as well. Let me, then, advance my second objection, which has to do with your characterization of constitutive rules. I shall argue that the characterization permits the classification of certain things as games, which are manifestly not games.
Please proceed, said the Grasshopper.